Welcome to the Pentagon's Cyber Defense Strategy, Good, Bad, and the Ugly. This is this week's Cyber Defense Weekly webcast, Tuesday, August 31st, 2010. I'm Richard Stiennon, Chief Research Analyst with IT Harvest and author of Surviving Cyberwar. First up, news today that the Cyber Defense Weekly is going to be co-hosted and shared with InfoSec Island, a community of security professionals. You can join the InfoSec Island community for free, sign up and start participating. And of course, if you're not a subscriber to the Cyber Defense Weekly, you can do so as well at threatchaos.com. Well, this week's discussion is wrapped around William Lynn's article in Foreign Affairs. William Lynn is the Deputy Secretary of Defense for the United States. And Foreign Affairs is quite often used as a vehicle to float trial balloons and semi-official positions from the Defense Department and the government, for that matter. William Lynn, if you dig into his background, was most recently Senior VP at Raytheon. As a matter of fact, it took a special action on the part of the Obama administration to bring him in and nominate him for the position as the Deputy Secretary of Defense because it violated a rule Obama had put in place that they would not hire anybody into government who had been acting as a lobbyist in the previous 2 years. They had to make exception for William Lynn, who is probably eminently qualified for the position of Deputy Secretary of Defense, since it seems his major task is to pull together the cost savings and procurement facilitation for the Defense Department, which is obviously a huge, huge task. You can find it somewhat shocking when you see his proposal for hiring 20,000 new program administrators just in acquisitions. So 20,000 new hires in the Defense Department just to handle the vast amount of acquisitions that the Defense Department engages in. And his article in Foreign Affairs, Defending a New Domain, lays out in, I believe, the most cogent and succinct way yet, just what the Defense Department's approach is to defending cyberspace and creating a strategy. So we're well along the way to having a well-articulated strategy. So that's welcome, but it's not all good. But first, the good. And in my opinion, some of the elements in the cyber strategy that are good are the acknowledgement of successful cyber attacks against the U.S. I think it has served as a wake-up call within the Defense Department, but I think making it more public, and certainly if you read the hundreds of articles being written about this in reaction, the acknowledgement that a major attack was successful against the Defense Department is having an impact on the rest of industry as well. He also states, to stay ahead of its pursuers, the United States must constantly adjust and improve its defenses. So this call for constant improvement is really stating in flat out that we're not going to have a silver bullet. We're not going to have a single overlay. There will be constant improvement in security, which of course reflects reality, and that's exactly what the enterprise has been dealing with for 15 years, with threats rising and constant defenses being put in place to counter each new level of threat. And then what was most heartening to me was the Assistant Secretary's statement that deterrence will necessarily be based more on denying benefit to attackers than on imposing costs through retaliation. This is a major component of the strategy, and there was some fears voiced from both industry and then also supported by a lot of the think tanks, in that in order to have an effective cyber defense, you'd have to have a cyber offensive capability. And while I'm sure Defense Department and NSA and other intelligence agencies are developing those and working on those, the key to getting the federal government in shape from a security standpoint is to improve their defensive capability. And then at a very high level, Lynn summarizes the Pentagon cyber strategy with a statement, which I'm going to read because there's hardly anything wrong with it. It's great. The principal elements of that strategy are to develop an organizational construct for training, equipping, and commanding cyber defense forces. So that's going to be the cybercom and centralized management. To employ layered protection with a strong core of active defenses, that's Security 101. To use military capabilities to support other departments' efforts to secure the networks that run the United States' critical infrastructure, to build collective defenses with U.S. allies, and to invest in the rapid development of additional cyber defense capabilities. The goal of the strategy is to make cyberspace safe so that its revolutionary innovations can enhance both the United States' national security and its economic security. So probably the most cogent statement of a cyber strategy yet to be published. So the bad, and this was just some of the disappointing elements of his piece in Foreign Affairs, and he's referring to, the 10 years of investment that the Defense Department's made in cybersecurity, and yet all he can point to are these three things. Better computer hygiene, so that's something that most of the organizations were attempting to deal with 7 to 10 years ago in having updated antivirus signatures and better control of firewalls and security appliance, network security devices, as well as network sensors. He's probably referring to the Einstein program, which to date has been the deploying of IDS sensors on all these networks. Now keep in mind, there are 15,000 networks that Lynn refers to inside the Defense Department, and you can just imagine the amount of signature triggers that will come from that many IDS sensors. And while there's an argument to be made that for an enterprise, you really don't care about who's attacking you and the volume of those attacks, if you can deploy defenses to just block them, right? Then you just say, I don't care, I'm going to move ahead, business is more important than hiring people to read logs, for instance. And you can argue that for situational awareness, the federal government as a whole could derive some benefit from having all that information. I'm just worried that the investment in it will be a distraction from the day-to-day blocking and tackling that not only the Defense Department, but the rest of the U.S. federal agencies have got to engage in. And finally, he points to intelligence sharing, where the idea is because of this great insight into what's going on in the world, they will share that with the rest of the community as well as the commercial sector. And unfortunately, right now we're still in a state of babble between many departments and agencies, and they are holding a lot of their information pretty close to their chests. And so we're not seeing the intelligence sharing that's promised as of yet. The ugly. Operations Buckshot and Rampart Yankee. So now we learn, even though nobody's written prominently about it, but this has been out for a while, but they assigned after the USB thumb drive worm that Lynn, in his opening remarks, claims were installed by foreign agents at a military base in the Mideast. Immediately after that, they found infections pretty widespread throughout the military and started these operations to clean up after the fact. One of the questions that arises is there really attribution? If there were foreign agents installing these, if you can attribute this massive attack, successful attack against top secret networks, is there evidence of that can be, allowed, the rest of us to be allowed to see? If you're going to make those claims in such a public manner, don't make it come off like you're just quoting the Wall Street Journal again, but give us some evidence so that we know there's attribution, and that will be part of the cyber intelligence sharing that we'd like to see coming out of the Defense Department. Certainly, recovery from that worm in the fall of 2008 was extremely painful. I found this presentation online. It was given by Brigadier General Ronnie Hawkins, titled Operation Buckshot Yankee, the OBY perspective, and then the Air Force NetOps handoff as they got this under control. And this was delivered in April of 2009, so over a year ago. But it means that, from the November spread of the worm to April, they were engaged in this massive cleanup of this. You see in the Brigadier General's presentation the original simple perspective that the Defense Department took of networks, which was basically that communications and command, cyber was just a commodity. It's the same thing that we experience in state governments and universities. The IT departments end up being the ISP for the schools or the branches of government that attach to them. The military was treating it in exactly the same way. It's, hey, we just got connected to the internet. And now in this presentation, the Brigadier General is pointing out that since Operation Buckshot Yankee, which was a tipping point, they now realize that adversary operations are using those exact same networks to attack the military. Final slide from his presentation was this. It's really just boilerplate. It's a picture of the entire Air Force, and he posed the question, who was affected? And in capital letters, the entire Air Force, and that includes combat ops, intel ops, info ops, and I think the and ... probably refer to the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, Joint Chiefs, the Pentagon, etc. So it's pretty widespread worm, obviously. Well, how massive was this cleanup? Well, you'll find on a little web page, it reminds me of the kind of homey community web page that we used to host for our Boy Scouts. This series of images of 4 fine soldiers being granted these commendations, and the caption was, soldiers demonstrated superlative dedication to their mission during last November's post-wide massive computer re-imaging project. The Post is a Polk military base in Louisiana. I estimate there are about 15 or so thousand endpoints that they had to re-image there. Operation Rampart Yankee. For their tremendous effort, these soldiers earned the prestigious Army Achievement Medal. On this historic occasion, Colonel Bloss gave out the first commendations to be delivered in this unit, the 162nd Infantry Brigade, in over 49 years. So obviously they were severely impacted by the worm. If they had to reimage every machine, you can imagine the impact that had all the way up the ranks to the commanders and the executives in the Pentagon, just as it has over the years at just about every enterprise that succumbed to a worm or a widespread virus. The disruption is real, and you feel it, and you want to pound the desk and say, let's not let this happen again. And that's exactly what has been going on inside the Defense Department. Thus, the reaction, the creation of Cybercom, and the seriousness that the Defense Department now takes security. That's it for the Pentagon cyber strategy. In industry news, we saw this past week that St. Bernard acquires Red Condor. St. Bernard is a company that's been around for a long, long time, over 10 years. They pretty much address the mid-market to SMB with email security appliances and the like. And Red Condor also has an email appliance, but they also have the hybrid model. So, and here's the problem with today's, gateway-only solutions. You step away from the office, and now you're not protected by that gateway. So it means having either a desktop agent or, in the case of Red Condor, a hybrid in the cloud solution that filters your traffic and your email. So St. Bernard is probably going to make a pretty good stance with the combined companies. On the identity and access management front, we're starting to see what's the logical fallout from the activity that's been happening over the last 18 months with new startups coming up with better ways to do identity management and authentication with cloud-based and web-based solutions. And CA, the great acquirer of identity management solutions, acquired Arcot, just announced this week for $200 million. That's Cyber Defense Weekly for August 31st. Feel free to follow me on TrekChaos.com, Twitter.com, cyberwar, and feel free to link into me on LinkedIn using my email address, richard@it-harvest.com. See you next week.